Thank you. I just want to put a little historic perspective in the mix. Divestment campaigns have been fixtures on college campuses for generations. They've called for withdrawing financial support for arms manufacturers, owners of sweatshops, union busters, carbon polluters, among others. What this current wave of activism resembles the most, of course, is the protests in the late 70s and 80s over investments in corporations doing business in apartheid South Africa. Back then, the student encampments were designed as shanty towns to reflect the squalor in which Black South Africans lived amidst the affluent white minority. I was part of that movement myself. During the South African protests, the arrests were mostly of students who engaged in more confrontational tactics, like occupying administration buildings. I did that. I knew we were going to be arrested. That was part of the plan. But the shanty towns and the other encampments on the greens, with notable exceptions, were allowed to stay for weeks and even months. And that's not the case today, where many of them have been subjected to mass arrest or removal almost immediately. Like at Dartmouth, their shanty town was up for over 5 months. This time, the administration allowed it to stay up for maybe 5 hours before they engaged in mass arrest. And similarly, the student groups that organized the shanty towns and even disrupted protests like the sit-ins in the administration building were allowed to operate as recognized student organizations. But now in Colombia and a bunch of other places, chapters of Students for Justice in Palestine, Jewish Voice for Peace, and other anti-war, anti-occupation groups have been banned. Yet another difference between now and the 80s is that while college and university administrators generally oppose divestment as a tactic, they would often reassure students, faculty, and alumni that they too strongly opposed apartheid. But today, virtually no college or university administrations have come out in opposition to Israeli apartheid or the occupation or the war in Gaza. And that underscores that they not only oppose enforcing ethical investment policies, but that they oppose the peace and human rights agenda as well. And they're not alone. If you look at the 2020 Democratic Party platform, it also explicitly opposed divestment campaigns targeting Israel. That same platform, however, did not criticize or even mention the Israeli occupation, illegal settlements, ongoing human rights abuses. Biden has attacked the protests and leading House Democrats. People like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's former head of the Democratic National Committee, and Adam Schiff, who's now the Democratic nominee for Senate in California. They sent a letter to the Columbia's Board of Trustees demanding that they forcibly shut down the nonviolent encampment, insisting it was anti-Jewish and a threat to the physical safety of Jewish students. It's nuts. You have John Fetterman, saying that the protests are anti-Semitic, unconscionable, dangerous, and they compared it to the neo-Nazi demonstrators in Charlottesville in 2017. And the Republican response has even been more extreme. Trump saying these are far worse than Charlottesville. And I could go on, but I think what we're seeing is something pretty disturbing, that things have moved to the right. In the year since I was camping out on my campus, and it's not. And it's weird. More repressive environment in the Biden era than the Reagan era. And I don't think it is just a matter of powerful Zionist groups or donors or that kind of thing. I think we're really seeing the very fact that colleges and universities, that with all these cutbacks of funding from the federal government and state government, are more and more dependent on corporate contributions and contributions of wealthy people in general, who are opposed to ethical investment policies anywhere. And so this is not just a struggle for Palestinian rights. This is a struggle against the whole neoliberal shift in American higher education, where the priorities of the wealthy and powerful are more important than those of you who are struggling for basic peace and human rights. And so I mean, we've seen how campuses have suddenly changed policies, that overnight if they deal with Palestinians, people who could hang flags out the windows or even do peaceful walkouts or other things that were tolerated before are suddenly illegal. That even people could camp out on the green to get good basketball tickets, but they can't camp out on the green in support of Palestine. And this is why a lot of the thing that's very heartening is the way so many faculty have come out in solidarity with students. How human rights and civil liberties groups like the American Civil Liberties Union, which doesn't take a position on Israel-Palestine, has also come to the defense of students because they understand what's at stake here. And so and I think this is going to be a very educational process, because not only are these protests raising consciousness and awareness about what's happening in Palestine, but also about the whole structure of the whole system. And it can be a radicalizing influence in the very best sense of the word. And finally, I just want to say that it's an important lesson from the divestment struggle in South Africa. In a lot of places, in fact, most places, the colleges and universities never divested. A fair number of them did. So, keep trying. I mean, this is not a hopeless cause. They have divested. Some are divesting from fossil fuels. There can be some real victories here. But the main thing about the divestment campaign was not getting these universities to divest per se, because the way they support the extent to which they support Israel, like the extent they support apartheid South Africa, is pretty minimal, compared to the billions of the dollars in U.S. arms and everything being sent to Israel. But it raised awareness, it raised consciousness, it put things on the map. It reminded students that something was happening thousands and thousands of miles away. Is something that affects that we have a certain responsibility for. So stay on message. Be very, remain nonviolent, remain inclusive. I know I know the claims of anti-Semitism are grossly exaggerated, but when it does happen, challenge it and don't let people get away with it. And be very clear on your vision that this is about justice first and foremost, and that those of us involved in higher education, whether it be as students or faculty, these universities are very important places to raise these very deep and important